share with us here. Brian? Is Brian there?
Paige, can you hear me? This is Ed Kavasik.
I can.
I tell you what, I'm not sure what happened with Brian, but since he can't be heard, Brian, was that you that just came on?
No, that was Arden. Can you go ahead, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, everybody can see the background here. I'll just say briefly, Bales has been part of the partner community for well over 20 years. Most folks know us as having a very, very seasoned group of individuals. We actually average over 20 years per consultant. So we like to think that we've seen it all going back many versions of Infor. And of course Lawson, which a lot of people still use. So we go across all of the different suites. We're very enabled when it comes to Cloud Suite. We've had some of the very first, very initial Cloud Suite implementations under our belt, and we've been developing along with the product over the last few years. Very proud to say that we're highly rated, having achieved Infor's 2019 Cloud Suite Partner of the Year. That distinction is based on client satisfaction. So that was not about total number, revenues back to Infor, any of those things. That was strictly based on client satisfaction levels with our implementation service. We're proudly a federally certified women-owned business, and we have now begun to be rated by class. Those in healthcare will know what class research is about. But our initial indication, our initial rankings, our initial where we're showing up on the list, we have to be careful about talking about rankings because they change daily. But we're way up in the 90s percentile. Go ahead to the next slide. Yeah, so I am going a little quickly since we got a late start on this. But like I had said before, we are on all three suites. We custom tailor everything to the size of the organization, the amount of resources that a company might have. We take that into consideration. Companies obviously want to do as much as they can on a big project, and we make sure that we understand where we fit in and what roles we should take over. Some of these things I did say already, but yeah, these are the things that make Bales stand out. There's a little more here towards the end about the client training, organizational change management, a lot of that. So, there you go for winging it. That's the introduction to us. Thank you folks so much for attending, and we'll get into the meat now.
All right, so today on the agenda, we are going to talk about performance management and goal management. To begin, performance management, we'll start with the benefits of using the system to automate the standardization and ease of reviews based on job requirements, the reporting, some of the reporting and dashboard capabilities, how performance management integrates with succession planning, compensation, and then for goal management, we will talk about the ability to incorporate current and future goals on performance reviews, and then some of those reporting capabilities as well. For the discussion overview, in relation to the automation, we will talk about how to schedule and deploy appraisals automatically briefly, and then we will talk about, again, the standardization of reviews by employee grouping and by positions. We'll talk about the system delivered dashboards for showing performance metrics, reports assisting in identifying top performers for succession planning. And then lastly, we'll talk about the performance review scores on compensation awarding screen. And those are all related again to performance management. Appraisal automation. So the system is really great in offering lots of different ways to automate appraisals. And many organizations I have found either use a paper process still, or they're using a manual electronic method. And what I mean by a manual electronic method may be that they have a Word document that they email out to their supervisors to complete on employees. With Infor appraisals, you can create templates that are deployed on a schedule, and they follow rules that are set on each template. And this allows it to run on a regular basis without somebody having to constantly generate and send these appraisals out, which that is also a capability of the system as well. Performance appraisals can be tied to eligibility groups, which receive who gets the appraisals. And this does not mean that they all have to be in the same position. So you can identify any employees you want within an eligibility group. And what that does is it ensures that all folks are being reviewed on the same content and that it is relevant to their job. You can automate appraisals using custom emails as well. So when you send appraisals out, they will send out email notifications letting managers and employees know that they have appraisals out there to be completed. And this is independent from organizational email rules as well, which you can set them on the organization, but you have the ability to override it depending on the template you use. Appraisals can be set up to automatically reassign when employees transfer or have a change in work assignment, which is very helpful. In the past, it used to have to go through HRIS or somebody who managed the performance appraisal program and delete the appraisal and resend those out. Now they move with the manager if that is something that is important to the organization that can be turned on. This also allows with the automatic reassign or with the reassign functionality that upline managers can reassign appraisals if necessary as well. Here is an example of how you would set up appraisals to generate for new hires. So here we would use an eligibility group, and within that eligibility group, we would define some date parameters to just pull new hires. Down in the performance review period, we would want to use the frequency. You could use the custom feature, which is new, or you could use the predefined date ranges that they have out there. So you could say 90 days from adjusted start date. You could say 60 days from the start date, or you can use this custom. Maybe it's 120 days from the adjusted start date. That would just depend on the organization's desires. And then for the appraisal due date, you would use the number of days after the appraisal end date. So this number here is calculated based on 120 days from their adjusted start date. And that would give you, and it would tack 30 days on, and that gives you the appraisal due date. Are there any questions regarding automation? I'll try and stop after each topic because while they're related, there's a lot of information I'm also covering.
I don't have anything in the chat yet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So, but I will let you know. And folks, if you want to send out any questions, if you don't feel like talking, just put them in the chat and I'll relay them to Ms. Page.
Thank you. Standardization. The system allows you to standardize employee appraisals now and the employee appraisal process. So there's two different ways that are used for employee standardization on templates, and that is setting up requirements on job and position profiles to include competencies and job-related responsibilities, which is done at the time. Typically, when you're setting up GHR, it can be done later, but it's usually easier to do it at the beginning. And then you can also create appraisal templates that have the eligibility groups assigned. So an appraisal template set up that way would have all the information hard-coded into the form as opposed to data that filters based on their job or position. When job and position profiles have been completed, the information can filter onto the employee appraisal based on their work assignment. So the section of the employee appraisal goes out, looks at their work assignment, and filters in whatever position or job related competencies and job responsibilities that are out there. This then ensures that all the employees that are in the same job are getting evaluated on the same responsibilities and competencies. This allows managers to compare the employees equally and over the same content for merit awarding and succession planning purposes. When eligibility groups are assigned to performance appraisals in conjunction with appraisal criteria, so this would be a template that has the data fixed on the form itself, and it doesn't filter based on their job or position. All of the employees within that eligibility group are also being reviewed on the same content, and allows managers, again, to compare employees for merit and succession planning as needed, easier than having, let's say, a Word document in the past where it maybe is outdated. One person's got updated, another person's didn't, and then you're not comparing apples to apples. When you standardize these appraisal processes, it allows employees to know what to expect. Quality is improved. Manager productivity can increase because they know what to expect on appraisals, and the staff can be easily compared. Here we have an example of how you would set up a criteria section to filter in data based on the position. So all of the information at the job level is going to be inherited down to the position. So when you select the criteria source of position, it actually is pulling job information as well. You would say the management level would be competency. You can do it at the behavior level as well, or proficiency level, if you're by the proficiency statements, if you're using those. Typically setting it up at the competency level is sufficient enough. You can show the performance indicators, which allows you to have a little bit more information for the managers when they're completing those performance appraisals, to know what to look for in the behaviors for the competency. And then for the criteria options, you would say put on there both competencies and skills. If you didn't want skills to be evaluated on a performance appraisal, you could just select competencies, or vice versa. You could just select skills if you didn't want competencies on there. The talent profile field is a newer field, and this here allows the data that the manager completes on the performance appraisal to filter back to the talent profile, which is used for development planning and succession planning. So you have the option to update and validate the competencies that would be on an employee's talent profile, or you can just update them and then they wouldn't be validated, and someone else could go in and validate that at a later date. Here we'll talk about some of the reporting capabilities that are available. Using performance management allows upline managers also to have a greater insight to the completion progress of performance appraisals for all the departments that they manage, and for all of their managers. So in the past, they did not have the ability to easily drill down, and now they can. So these reports, again, would be able to be filtered by status, and they could see how much was completed, which managers were behind, and this is helpful when they're looking at their performance programs within their department. On the next page here, this is what the look would look like from an upline manager, and some of the reporting capabilities that are available for them. And again, this is relatively new. So if we had up here that the top line would be the upline manager, and they could open up these little plus signs on the side, and it expands out, and they can drill down as far as they wanted. So here, this manager, Chris, he only has one appraisal out here, and it is in draft status. If there were other appraisals out here, it would show different pieces of the pie of different color for draft, in progress, and then submitted for acknowledgement, or finalized and submitted for acknowledgement. The upline manager can click. Again, there's only one color represented here because there's only one appraisal, but they could click on the different pieces of the pie to see the appraisals listed out down here. As an upline manager, they also have the ability to open this appraisal through the consolidated appraisal function right here, and see how this employee is being evaluated, if that is necessary. Now we'll talk about succession planning and how performance plays a role in succession planning. Succession planning for organizations is very important for ensuring key and critical positions have a backup plan if someone is to vacate the position. These key and critical positions are identified on the position and job. Performance appraisals are a great way to determine how each of your staff are performing and who is the strongest. So by identifying your strongest staff members, you can begin to assign development programs for them and groom them for succession. And maybe these as you get higher up in the rankings of your employees, some of these programs that you would enroll employees into based on their performance could be years long. So maybe they're on a 5-year development plan with the intention that maybe someday they would fill a VP or C-level position. The succession planning module is able to pull performance data into each employee's succession profile. And I'll show you an example of the succession profile on the next slide. Within that succession profile, it allows you to get an overall view of your employee's succession plan. If performance appraisals are designed to pull in job and specific data, they feed the results back to the resource profile, which we talked about previously. And then the managers, again, can compare the staff by using the gap analysis and see who is most fit for a particular role. There's also options where you can run their skills and competencies and education, so their credentials, against position or job profiles and see, which role they would fit into, which also is listed out for the career paths. Here is the example of the succession profile. So this is just the general details tab. And when you scroll to the bottom, you can see where performance is listed. At the top, there's a button you can refresh the performance data, and it would pull in their most recent performance appraisal data. And this whole thing can be printed out. All these tabs together can be printed out. So if there are meetings that are regularly attended where you would show up with your succession to discuss succession plans and people's development, you could just print all these tabs and have one document to carry with you, and that is called their succession profile. Performance and compensation. If you have a pay for performance program, then the system can be configured to make it easier for managers to determine how much to award each staff member based on their performance rating. When you're creating the awarding views in compensation, the organization can decide to display performance appraisal ratings on that awarding view page in compensation. That would be on the metrics tab in the manager awarding views. There's also the pay for performance chart, which analyzes the performance ratings compared to the salary structure information. Now we will jump over to goals. Were there any questions related to performance, Kelly?
Not yet. I can ask some if you need me to.
It's okay.
Okay.
All right, moving into goals here. Evaluating current goals and setting future goals. So goals can be incorporated on the performance appraisal for ease of evaluation and so that they can be tied to the performance review. The goals module does operate independently as well, so that throughout the year, the goals can be updated and new goals can be set, goals can be closed out if they needed to be through the goals module. However, it is, I think, preferred that it is done at the time of performance review, and it is a lot easier. So it takes away the need for employees to basically sign off or accept their goals. If you set goals in the goals module, that is the requirement. Employees have to accept those goals. If you set them on the performance review, then when the performance review is completed, when the employee acknowledges that performance review, they're also acknowledging that they have gone over their goals and know what their goals are for the next year. So those automatically become active goals for them. Some of the reports that go along with that related to goals is that it gives the organization greater insight to goal tracking within the organization. So if you have org goals set up, then you can align employee goals to directly tie to the organizational goals. So you can ensure that employees, have meaningful goals that are being set and that they're working towards the overall goal of the organization. Some of the other reports that are delivered for goals would be goal status, so you can see where the goals are at in completion, the goal progress, and again, that's a similar report, see what the progress is on there. You can see missing resource goals, so you can run a report to see who doesn't have goals. Maybe your organization requires that every person has goals, and you can do that now and run it even by fiscal year if you wanted to. You can see who has misaligned resource goals. So again, if you have an organization that requires the goals to be tied back to org goals, then you can run reports on misaligned resource goals or unaligned, and it will tell you, which resource goals need attention. Organization goal alignment counts, so you can see who has their goals tied to organization goals, and then resource goal weights. And this is important. You might have goals that get created that don't have weights assigned, and that is important when you're completing performance appraisals, especially if you expect that goals be calculated into the overall score of a performance appraisal, and that they may be tied to a pay for performance program. So you would want to make sure that by running your resource goal report that shows the weights, that they all have weights assigned to make sure that people are getting reviewed appropriately. Here is an example of the resource goal status analysis in the top part. That shows, again, just the types of goals that are out there. You can expand it and drill in to see the goal categories more if you have expanded goal categories. But you can see the count for submitted, active, past due, completed, and on hold goals. And then you can see what the percentage of the completion it is at. It also shows this beautiful bar chart over here once you have data loaded in there. The bottom report is the missing resource goals report. And you can generate, as I said, by fiscal year. And this here would show you who is missing goals in this example for fiscal year 2020. Are there any questions? Okay, I believe that there are a few more slides that
Kelly's going to talk about.
Okay, Kelly is going to talk about. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Paige. Any questions for Paige? Anything at all? If not, I'll just jump into our final few slides here.
I have a quick question for Paige.
Yeah, go ahead.
Paige, you had talked about the goals. So we manage many companies at where I work, and some companies require goal weights and some do not. So it's, that one size does not fit all. So we are requiring everyone, if your organization doesn't weigh goals, to just put 1%, just to give it a weight. Is there any way to upload that through Spreadsheet Designer, maybe for those who don't weigh goals?
So once the goals are set, yes, you could export the resource goals and then put in the 1% and upload the weight back in.
Perfect. Thank you.
That does have to be done, I believe, through the goals module. If you do it on the performance review, you have to set on the performance review if weights are required, because you set a weight for that whole section on the performance review. So if you don't put anything in there and a manager creates a goal and there's no weight assigned to that goal, it's not going to let them complete it because it's saying that that section for goals is weighted.
Yeah, we found that out the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah. But yes, you can do it through ISD if you're doing it, like if you do goal setting at the beginning of the year and everyone goes out there and in the goals module and sets their goals.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Alrighty, well, if so, please just type it in the chat or just speak up. We're a friendly, informal bunch here. But we do want a couple little slides here to let everybody know that we are doing a coffee with consultants kind of promotion. So what that is you can contact Bales and Associates if you don't want to ask the question here, or if you want to get in a little more detail. Shoot us an email and we'll schedule some time with one of our subject matter experts like Paige to have a conversation about what that topic is. And you get a free 30 minutes of a discussion on any topics that you choose to discuss. So you visit us at www.balesllc.com, and we'll send an email through to our website, and we'll get you paired with a consultant that can answer your questions. Next slide, please, Paige. We do have some more upcoming webinars at 1 o'clock this afternoon on Friday. We're going to be doing planning for supply chain conversion with financial considerations. It has to do with Cloud Suite Finance. I know most of us are HR folks, but really informative presentation. I would definitely tell your finance and supply folks to take a look at it, tell you what we need to think about if we're moving up to CSF. Next slide, please. Now, next Friday, we have another presentation at noon. It is a phased approach to Infor's Human Capital Management suite of products. It is a topic on how we at Bales took one of our clients and brought them through a multi-phased aspect on rolling out all of Infor products, leading to the fact that it's a medium-sized organization, but a very light back office. Not heavy with resources. So we put together this phased approach to bring them up on all of Infor products. And actually right now for that client, we need to, they are in the process of implementing GHR payroll. So it's really exciting times. Next slide, please. And then also next Friday, we have a technical presentation, a beginner's guide to IPAs, which is Enforced Process Automation. Very exciting stuff for most of you, as most of you already know. The GHR product, or the Human Capital Management product, runs a lot on delivered flows. So this is going to be a beginner's guide to those two flows, how they work, what we need to do, and how we can troubleshoot if need be. And I think that's my last slide.
I was going to say that's your last slide.
Great. That was a quick presentation today. Paige, thank you again. Please, if anybody has any questions, comments, we would love to hear your feedback. Reach out to us via our email or any other way. So thank you all again for your time today. I hope you have a great weekend and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you.